The room is quiet, not the heavy silence of conflict, not the silence after crying, a different kind of quiet. Morning sunlight moves slowly across the wall. Soft gold, soft shadows. The city outside is beginning to wake. Cars passing somewhere far away, a dog barking once in the distance. The ordinary sounds of life continuing. And yet, something inside her feels strangely unfamiliar. She sits near the window holding a warm cup of tea in both hands. Not thinking, not scrolling, not preparing for anything, just sitting there. And for the first time in years, her body is not bracing itself against the next emotional storm. No panic, no argument replaying in her mind. No silent tension moving through the house. Only stillness. But strangely, the stillness does not feel peaceful yet. It feels disorienting, as if her nervous system no longer knows what to do without the constant fight. For so many years, her body lived inside urgency, fixing, preparing, anticipating, enduring, even during calm moments. Part of her remained alert, watching people's moods, reading tones of voice, predicting emotional shifts before they arrived. Survival had become automatic. So automatic that she stopped noticing how exhausted she truly was. Her body became used to tension the way some people become used to background noise. The tight chest, the shallow breathing, the constant feeling that something needed attention, something needed fixing, something might go wrong at any moment. And now, the chaos has become quieter, not perfect, not fully healed, just quieter. And instead of immediate relief, something unexpected appears. Emptiness, a strange emotional space where urgency used to live. Because when survival mode lasts long enough, it slowly becomes part of your identity. And when it finally begins fading, you are left asking a frightening question. Who am I without the survival? Healing is rarely as simple as people imagine. Most people think the moment suffering decreases, peace immediately arrives. But often, the first thing that appears after emotional survival is confusion, because survival mode gave the mind a constant direction. There was always something to manage, something to prepare for, something emotionally demanding pulling attention outward. But now, the urgency is softer, and suddenly, she is left alone with herself. No crisis distracting her, no emotional emergency telling her who she needs to be. And underneath all the exhaustion, a quieter question slowly begins to emerge. What do I actually feel when I am not surviving? What kind of life feels natural to my body? What kind of silence feels safe? What kind of pace feels alive? The strange thing about healing is that before people rediscover joy, they often meet emptiness first. Not because something is wrong, but because the nervous system is slowly learning that life no longer has to feel like a constant emergency. And maybe that is the strangest part of healing. The outside world can become quieter, while the body still lives as if danger could return at any moment. Morning light fills the room. She waters the plants slowly. The small green leaves move gently beneath her fingers. Nothing is wrong right now. Nothing urgent is happening. No conflict, no emotional explosion, no tension moving through the walls. And yet, her body still feels alert. Not dramatically. Not like panic. Something quieter than that. A subtle readiness. As if her nervous system is still listening for footsteps that are no longer coming. For years, her body believed staying alert was the same thing as staying safe. So now, even inside calm moments, part of her remains watchful, waiting for a text message, a change in tone, a sudden emotional shift, a problem that needs solving, because survival mode does not disappear immediately just because the danger becomes quieter. The body learns fear slowly, and it also learns safety slowly. She notices it in ordinary moments now, folding clothes, standing quietly by the window, walking outside without headphones, sitting alone with tea and nowhere urgent to be. Everything feels slower than before, and strangely, the slowness feels unfamiliar. For so long, her life moved inside urgency, thinking quickly, responding quickly, emotionally preparing for things before they even happened. The nervous system became addicted to anticipation, not because she wanted suffering, but because the body became conditioned to constant emotional movement. So now, when life finally softens a little, the calm almost feels uncomfortable, like silence that is too quiet, like a room missing background noise you no longer notice consciously, but still expect emotionally. Sometimes she catches herself searching for problems even inside peaceful moments, not because she wants pain, but because the body no longer knows how to fully relax without feeling exposed. People often imagine healing as becoming instantly peaceful, but many nervous systems do not trust peace immediately, because peace once felt temporary, fragile, unsafe. So even when the body finally has space to rest, restlessness continues moving quietly underneath. She stands outside feeling the wind against her skin. Sunlight moves across the ground. Somewhere nearby, birds are singing softly, and for a brief moment, she notices something unusual. Her body is not fighting anything, no defending, no fixing, no emotional bracing, just breathing. The moment is simple, almost painfully simple, and suddenly, she understands something she never saw clearly before. Survival mode had shaped the rhythm of her entire existence, the urgency, the tension, the hyper-awareness, the constant emotional readiness. Without it, life feels strangely empty at first, but maybe that emptiness is not brokenness. Maybe it is simply space. Space the nervous system has never learned how to live inside before. Because sometimes healing feels empty before it feels alive. And perhaps that is why peace can initially feel so uncomfortable. Not because the body truly wants suffering, but because the nervous system became familiar with intensity. The city moves quickly around her now. Cars passing, phones vibrating, people rushing across the street while staring into glowing screens. Noise everywhere, movement everywhere, everyone reacting to something, and in the middle of all that motion, she sits quietly inside a small cafe, watching steam rise slowly from a cup of tea. At first, the stillness almost feels unreal. Part of her mind keeps searching for stimulation, something urgent, something emotional, something demanding attention. Because when a person lives inside survival for too long, the body can quietly become addicted to emotional intensity. Not addicted to pain itself, but addicted to the chemistry of urgency, the constant anticipation, the emotional spikes, the endless state of readiness. And without realizing it, chaos slowly becomes associated with feeling alive. For years, her nervous system rarely had the chance to fully settle. There was always something, a difficult conversation, an emotional undercurrent, a problem waiting beneath the surface, a tension the body could feel before the mind even understood it. And over time, that emotional movement became normal. So now, when life becomes slower, calm feels unfamiliar, silence feels empty, stillness feels unsafe, not logically, but physically. The body keeps waiting for the next emotional wave to arrive. Sometimes she notices herself reaching for her phone without needing anything, checking messages repeatedly, filling quiet moments with noise, turning on television just to avoid the silence in the room. Because deep rest can initially feel unbearable to a nervous system trained to survive chaos. And the strange thing is this: sometimes people do not actually miss the pain. They miss the intensity, the emotional stimulation, the feeling of constantly being needed, the adrenaline of surviving another difficult moment. Without it, life can temporarily feel flat, almost emotionally colorless. But slowly, she begins noticing something important. The chaos was never the same thing as aliveness. It only felt alive because her nervous system had forgotten what true presence feels like. She sits quietly now, watching people move outside the cafe window. Fast footsteps, fast conversations, fast lives, and for the first time, she does not feel the same urgency pulling her body forward. The stillness is still unfamiliar, but no longer terrifying, just unfamiliar. Like stepping into a room the soul has not visited in a very long time, and underneath all the emotional noise, another feeling slowly begins emerging. Fatigue, not weakness, not failure, just the exhaustion of living too many years inside emotional survival. For so long, her body believed love required tension, safety required hyper-awareness, worth required constant emotional labor. But now, something inside her is beginning to soften, not dramatically, quietly, as if the nervous system is slowly realizing it no longer needs to earn existence through exhaustion. And gradually, as the chaos inside her body begins settling, another realization quietly appears. For years, she lived almost entirely through obligation. What needs to be handled? What needs fixing? Who needs support? What must be survived next? Her attention moved constantly outward, toward responsibilities, expectations, emotional management, keeping life functioning. And somewhere inside all that survival, something very small slowly disappeared. Curiosity. She enters a bookstore one afternoon with no real purpose, no task to complete, no urgency. Her fingers move slowly across the spines of unfamiliar books. She pauses in places she normally would have rushed past, and suddenly, a strange question emerges inside her. What do I actually enjoy? Not what is useful, not what is productive, not what helps everyone else feel comfortable, but what genuinely makes my soul feel awake. And for a moment, she realizes she does not immediately know the answer. Survival mode leaves very little room for desire, because the nervous system becomes focused almost entirely on protection. Safety first, function first, endure first. So eventually, life becomes less about living and more about maintaining stability. She notices it now in small moments, listening to music alone while driving slowly through the city at night, standing inside a small shop touching soft fabrics for no reason other than she likes how they feel, walking through a park at sunset without needing to arrive anywhere. At first, These moments feel almost unnecessary, even slightly uncomfortable, because survival conditioned her to believe rest must be earned, pleasure must be justified, stillness must be productive. But healing slowly begins changing that. Not dramatically, quietly, like warmth returning to a body that spent too many years emotionally cold. And little by little, life begins feeling less like a problem to solve and more like something she can finally experience again. One evening, she sits alone on a park bench watching the sky slowly change color. Orange, gold, soft blue fading into dusk. Nothing extraordinary is happening. And yet, for the first time in a very long time, she feels present enough to actually notice beauty without rushing past it emotionally. And suddenly, she understands something. Healing is not always dramatic happiness. Sometimes healing is simply the return of aliveness, the return of genuine feeling, the return of curiosity, the return of small desires that survival once buried underneath exhaustion. Wanting to read again, wanting to create something, wanting to walk slowly, wanting to listen deeply, wanting to laugh without monitoring the room emotionally first. For years, her identity formed itself around surviving pain. But now, something deeper is beginning to emerge. A self that exists outside the emergency. A self that does not need chaos in order to feel real. And maybe that is one of the quietest miracles of healing. The moment a person realizes they are not only recovering from suffering, they are rediscovering their capacity to truly live. And life begins changing in ways that are almost invisible. Not through dramatic realizations, not through emotional breakthroughs, but through rhythm. A quieter rhythm her body had forgotten was possible. She walks slowly through nature now, bare feet touching the grass. Wind moving gently through the trees. Late afternoon sunlight warming her skin. Nothing urgent is happening. No emotional pressure. No need to solve anything immediately. No invisible countdown moving inside her chest. For so many years, life felt like constant preparation, preparing for disappointment, preparing for conflict, preparing for emotional impact before it arrived. But now, something inside her is beginning to move differently. Slower, softer, more spacious. And at first, that spaciousness feels unfamiliar. Because when a person has lived inside urgency for too long, stillness can feel almost unreal, like stepping outside a noise-filled room and suddenly hearing how quiet the world actually is. She notices things now she once moved past automatically. The sound of wind brushing through leaves, the warmth of tea resting between her hands, the way evening light slowly changes the color of a room. Small things, ordinary things, but for the first time in years, her attention is no longer consumed entirely by emotional survival. And because of that, life begins revealing itself differently, not louder, quieter. She sits beneath a tree watching shadows move across the ground. People pass nearby. The world continues moving, but inside her, there is less rushing now, less chasing, less anticipating, less emotional noise pulling her away from the present moment. Thoughts still appear sometimes. Fear still visits occasionally. Sadness still moves through the body without warning. But these experiences no longer define the entire atmosphere of her existence. They arrive, they pass, and something deeper quietly remains beneath them. For most of her life, she believed peace had to be earned through fixing, through endurance, through emotional effort, through holding everything together. But now, another understanding is beginning to emerge. Maybe life was never asking her to carry every moment like an emergency. Maybe existence was always meant to breathe more slowly than that. She closes her eyes and listens to the ocean in the distance. Inhale, exhale. The body softens slightly. The shoulders loosen. The mind quiets for just a moment. And within that moment, she notices something unexpected. Nothing is missing right now. The sky does not need fixing. The wind does not need controlling. The waves do not rush themselves toward the shore. Everything moves in its own rhythm. And perhaps healing was never about becoming someone new. Perhaps it was simply remembering how to exist without carrying life like a constant emotional emergency. Golden light stretches softly across the ocean. The waves move slowly toward the shore and disappear again into the sand. She walks quietly beside the water. No dramatic transformation, no sudden enlightenment, no forced happiness painted across her face. Just openness, breathing, presence. The wind moves gently through her hair as the horizon widens around her. And for the first time in years, her body does not feel trapped inside itself anymore, not completely healed, not completely certain, just lighter, as if something heavy has finally loosened its grip around the nervous system. She spent so many years surviving life that she forgot life was also meant to be lived. Not every silence hides danger. Not every feeling is an emergency. Not every difficult emotion needs to be escaped immediately. And maybe that is the beginning of freedom. The moment the body realizes existence no longer has to feel like constant preparation for pain. For so long, her nervous system believed survival was the same thing as living. Stay alert, stay prepared, stay emotionally guarded. Do not relax too much. Do not trust calm too easily. Do not soften completely. Because somewhere deep inside, the body feared that safety could disappear at any moment. But slowly, something new has begun happening. Not outside her, inside her relationship with experience itself. Now when sadness appears, she does not panic immediately. When fear visits, she no longer believes it defines reality. When uncertainty comes, she does not abandon herself trying to outrun it. She breathes, she notices, she remains present, and little by little. The nervous system begins learning that peace is not the absence of feeling. Peace is the absence of constant internal war. The waves continue moving beside her, rising, falling, returning again, and for the first time in years, her inner world no longer feels like something she must constantly fight against. The camera slowly widens now. She appears smaller against the vastness of the ocean, but somehow more whole. For most of her life, identity formed itself around survival, managing emotions, avoiding pain, protecting herself from collapse, holding everything together. But underneath all that effort, there was always another self waiting quietly beneath it. A self untouched by urgency, a self untouched by fear, a self that did not need chaos in order to feel real. And slowly, she is beginning to meet that self again, not through force, not through perfection, not through becoming someone new, but through presence, through slowing down enough to finally hear the quieter rhythm underneath survival. The ocean continues breathing beside her. The sky darkens slowly into evening, and somewhere within that vast silence, another understanding gently arrives. Healing was never about becoming emotionless. It was never about eliminating every fear or controlling every thought. Perhaps healing was simply learning that life no longer needs to be survived every moment. Long silence, and slowly, very slowly, she begins meeting the person underneath the survival mode.
For years, she mistook tension for aliveness, mistook hyper-vigilance for love, mistook exhaustion for responsibility. Her nervous system became a house with all the lights left on through the night. Even silence felt suspicious, even peace felt temporary. And somewhere along the way she forgot that the ocean never hurried to become the sea. The body remembers what the mind tries to spiritualize away, the tightening chest before a message arrives, the invisible preparation before disappointment speaks. The ancient reflex of becoming smaller to preserve connection. And slowly she began to understand survival is not only fear. Sometimes survival is the lifelong habit of abandoning yourself before others can. Who would she become if the emergency ended? If suffering stopped narrating identity? If silence was no longer emptiness but space? Perhaps healing was never the removal of pain. Perhaps healing was simply the nervous system discovering that existence does not require constant defense. One evening, she sat beside the ocean, watching waves arrive without resistance. None of them forced themselves forward, none of them apologized for retreating. And suddenly, something inside her softened, because for the first time, life was not asking her to hold everything together. The sky remained whole without her control. The wind continued moving without her vigilance, and the earth itself had never once survived by panic. Maybe peace feels empty at first, because the ego was constructed around urgency. Because when a person lives too long inside emotional survival, the absence of chaos can feel like the absence of self. But beneath all that conditioning, another rhythm waits, older than fear, quieter than thought, a way of being that does not tighten against life, and slowly, very slowly, she stopped asking, how do I survive this life? And began asking, how gently can I belong to it? The ocean kept breathing, the stars kept burning without urgency. And somewhere inside that vast stillness, she finally met the self beneath survival. The soul was never exhausted from feeling too much. It was exhausted from never feeling safe.